Welcome to Mysterious Goings On. We're going to get right to the show after these messages.
You know, a lot of Americans may not be aware that we are actually in a war right here on American soil and we don't even know about it. And that is just a small part of what we're going to talk about today as we talk to Ed McDonald. Ed McDonald is the author of Korea's Game, an explosive debut thriller by a law enforcement expert, Ed McDonald. It's set in Arizona during the 2 months leading up to North Korea's combined nuclear and cyber attack on the U.S. and the 2 days immediately following. This is gripping stuff, folks. And what I'm really excited about talking about is this great book, but also about Ed's thoughts on just how vulnerable the United States may well be to cyber attack. So let's welcome Ed McDonald to Mysterious Goings On. Welcome, Ed.
Well, good morning. I'm really glad to be here.
It's good to have you. Now, just to kind of go through your bio a little bit, some kind of cool stuff here. You worked with the U.S. Congress to develop a national day to commemorate the Challenger astronauts, which that's astronaut. I'm a huge astronaut fan. I read that and I was just so thrilled to hear that. But you've done a National Day of Excellence for years, and you served as a reserve police officer in Tucson, and you were director of academic programs and pubs editor for the Final Option Tactical Force Institute, an international post-grad training institute for SWAT and hostage rescue team operators. You've edited, illustrated, and published 8 advanced law enforcement tactical textbooks. And yeah, you spent a little bit of time in the classroom. You've got 2 master's degrees, and you've lived in some pretty interesting places. You've lived in Mexico, Russia, Kazakhstan, and of course, the good old United States. You've had kind of a fun life so far, haven't you?
And I'm still enjoying it. As a matter of fact, I'm an old bird, and the last 20 years have been the most fun and happiest of my life.
I want to jump into that then. You're having most fun and you're happiest, but you're clearly concerned about cybersecurity vulnerabilities in our country. When did this jump onto your radar personally, this topic?
It really hit me when I read Ted Koppel's book, Lights Out. He very carefully details everything you would ever want to know about America's power grid. Basically explaining how it's antiquated. It was never intended for the purpose it's being used for now. And on its own, it can have enough problems, but is very, very vulnerable to attack. And by attack, I don't mean something that would put the lights out for a couple days. A real cyber attack would put the power out for 8, 10, 12, 15 years.
Years.
No
My
kidding.
goodness, you said years. My goodness. You know, I have not read Koppel's book, but I have followed Richard Clark, former U.S. cybersecurity czar, and he has a podcast. I believe it's called Future State, and he often has talked about this too. It's chilling stuff. It's scared the you know what out of me, because I just don't think people clearly understand that like you just said, it's a very vulnerable state we're in, and you tell me, Ed, if I'm reaching, but right now, as we record this on February 17th, 2021, the entire state of Texas is in a state of emergency because their power grid just can't handle the demand. That's not even talking about sabotage, right?
No, that's right. And not only that, but Texas has one of the finest power grids in the 50 states.
Holy cow. Holy cow. So what is I assume the entryway, of course, it's cyber being that. It's through the internet, through security systems like this. Who is gunning for us? And if so, why would you say? Who's the number one that's looking to make some mischief with our power grid? In your book, it's North Korea. It's right. It's North Korea in the book, but
there are four hostile actors which have the power to absolutely do this. They're China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. China and Russia are never going to do it because we'd know they did it and we would nuke them, and they know it. Iran would only do it if they were undergoing a total government crash and they were all going to be out of work in a week, and they figure let's hit the United States while we're at it. No, that's not real likely. Now, North Korea is dictated by an unstable actor. a man
Yeah.
who could easily persuade himself that he could get away with it. And when people think they can get away with it, that makes them very dangerous.
You just said something really provocative. You said China or Russia. Now, you said they wouldn't do it. And my first thought before you finished your sentence was because our economy, especially with China, they need our economy. There is no profit for them to wreck our economy, I don't think. Russia maybe less or so. But you said nuke them. So are you saying, do you sincerely believe that if they did make such a cyber attack that effectively disabled many of our larger population centers, that we would actually take that kind of action with nuclear weapons?
I'm confident we would. You have to understand a cyber attack like that. We got 330 million people and living in America. Probably 100 million of them would die in the first several years following a cyber attack. You know,
That's because
we're used to what I think of as the Louisiana syndrome, where there's a huge hurricane hits Florida or it hits Louisiana. And I mean, you know, everything is trashed, but we send in the Army and we send in FEMA, and they have unlimited trucks and food and repairmen, and they come in there and they fix everything in over a period of months. And New Orleans or Miami are back up and running. But if you knock out 40 states, the other 12 states can't just come in and put the other 40 states back up.
That's a good point.
Now,
And
after a cyber attack, there'd be a few states that weren't touched, but they'd still have trouble because they wouldn't be able to get gasoline from Galveston.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're talking supply chain disaster here.
Absolutely. That's our supply chain works so well that we complain if we can't get Twinkies.
It's true. Yeah, I'm sitting here in basically Blizzardville, Kansas City, Missouri, and I've heard somebody complain on the news that their Amazon delivery was a day late, which is just, we are spoiled in a nice way, but we are spoiled in America. And I think what you're bringing about here is terrifying. I almost think, in this book with Korea's Game, I was thinking about, well, is this Tom Clancyville we're in, or are we in a horror movie?
Well, real life could turn into a horror movie. But America is the most powerful country in the history of the world. We're the wealthiest country in the history of the world. And we're the only country with a colossal wealthy middle class in history. Everybody in the world wants to come here.
Yeah. Yeah. So what makes us the envy of the world can make us a juicy target. Let's talk about Korea's Game here. I love this because what you're doing, you're pulling together your obvious national security knowledge with your law enforcement background and your technical knowledge relating to electronic surveillance and cyber warfare. And it's all pulled together. And you've got this character, lead character's name is Murph. It's a former Army Ranger who's now a civil servant, and he's faced with a couple of problems, right? So what's his first problem? What's he got to do first?
He's a guy who has the foresight to see the imminence and the utter disaster that would come with a cyber attack. And he has a job working as a director of emergency preparedness for a little village, a mythical town that I made up north of Tucson, which I call Tortolita. And he is trying to get distributed power across his town and the area around it. And by distributed power, I'm basically talking about microgrids. For example, if there were a cyber crash, what are the police going to do? The police are going to have a lot of trouble just surviving. For one thing, people know where they live; they'll go there and kill them because people don't like cops. And then the cops won't have any way of reacting, responding, knowing what to do. So he has done a colossal fundraising drive, and he has a multimillionaire friend who became an angel and donated money to the county money, and they built the prototype of the colossal police substation that would have its own power supply, its own water supply. Going to have big storage areas for freeze-dried food, and big dormitories, so that if Tucson were knocked out, their police could come work out of the substation with the deputy sheriffs. and they wouldn't be killed in their sleep. And they would be able to still answer calls. If somebody called for help, they'd be able to go and respond. They made a deal with the telephone companies to put up a redundant telephone broadcast tower on their station, so that for a space of 10, 12 miles around, people could still use their phones to call the police. So he set up a prototype, which he's hoping people around the United States will copy. And then he's going to small businesses, like people who are setting up like a standalone emergency room, something like that. And he's saying, your standalone emergency room should not be depending on municipal power. You should have your own water supply and your own electrical system, not just a generator and a month's supply of propane, but your own microgrid, which generates power for years. Because if there's a real disaster, where are people going to come except to you? So, he's trying to get people to convert with the idea that he would spread this around the country, so that in the event of a real disaster, people could still go to the dentist.
And he's doing all this incredibly hard work against the backdrop of problems at home, right?
That's right. And he doesn't, like me, he has no idea when a cyber strike could come. It could come after I die of old age, or it could come today. So he's just working away, doing his best. And so in the course of all this, while there's a lot of stress and momentum in the book, where people are constantly worried about what's going to happen here, what's going to happen there. But you get to hear him making his pitch to people, and you're feeling sorry for him because most people turn him down. But in the process of this, you're learning a lot of what Ted Koppel had to say.
And he's dealing with he's got his daughter who he's estranged from. He's got issues with his ex-wife. This is all coming together into a really tight thriller.
We all are familiar with the broken home syndrome, where you have mother and father separated for whatever reason, however good or bad, and the child only has one parent, and sometimes they get the good parent, and sometimes they get the bad parent, and and sometimes they get the good parent who then becomes the bad parent. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of kids who are getting by with half the parenting that they need, and that's the case in this story. Murph got married in his innocent youth, and he got married to someone that he didn't have the sophistication to see that she had a deteriorating personality. And finally, they got divorced. She was an alcoholic, but he knew she could take care of his daughter. And now here I'm kind of playing to men who've got a bad situation, and they want to be someone sympathize with them. It says she got an order of protection to keep him away when he was really the better character. So he can't go see his daughter, and he doesn't know his wife's deteriorating into alcoholism. And when she gets a bad boyfriend, then she goes into drug addiction. He has no clue. Whenever he texts his daughter, the mother has confiscated her phone, and she texts back, "Dad, leave me alone." And he's noble. He thinks that he should leave her alone. He has no idea what's happening to this poor girl, because the boyfriend is the archetypical bad guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about the mother. He's using her as a gateway to get the daughter, who is 14 going on 15 and looks older. And she is like the perfect daughter everybody would want. She's a good kid. She'd make straight A's. All she wants is to go to college. And when something bad happens at school, where she's suspended for a couple of days, he goes along with the idea that maybe she's been thrown out of school permanently. And he gets her a job working at this horrible place, and he knows she'll hate it. And after she hates her job enough, he says, I could get you a job dancing as a cheerleader at the two-bit bar. And he has a long talk with the owner of the bar, and the guy doesn't want a cheerleader, but he'd be glad to seduce this girl and get all the customers betting on when they can get her to turn into a real a pole dancer. And of course, the girl she's not dumb, she's smart, but she gets sucked into this. And her father has no clue. So you're going back and forth between these two stories. And you're wondering, when is he going to catch on? Oh my God, he's got to get up there and do something, because this guy's a man of action. He would do something, but he's being noble, and he's not interfering in her life. So all of that is going on. And this is the way a lot of the sex trade works. People think that all the sex workers are people who've been kidnapped from some foreign country, or if they're from America, they think, well, this is someone who wants that life. Well, not really. No, there are people who want that life. There are some naked dancers who make a lot of money and get to keep it and are very happy, but they're a distinct minority. Most of them do not get to see their money. They get to visit their money for a couple of hours, and they have to give it to their pimp, who takes every single penny and gives them enough money for a sandwich. And they make him rich, because you're thinking, she could save that money and then she could move to another country, and you couldn't find her. But she doesn't get to save it. She only gets to hold it for a couple of hours. And people don't understand that. These people are virtual slaves because they don't have enough money to take a bus to the next town. And this is so men who like to go to these bars and watch girls dance, enjoy the fantasy that the girls are up there smiling because they're happy to be there.
Right.
And most of them are not, but they enjoy this fantasy.
They're very tragic places. I've been to I've been to a few in my youth, and I look back now, and I just think now with sadness that that was not a place of fun. That nobody's really happy to be there except for goofy guys who want to ogle women. And what you're saying is makes it painfully true that so many of those young women are miserable there. And I wonder if, looking back, taking a step back from the book itself, did your experiences as a reserve police officer, did you observe a lot of this stuff firsthand?
I occasionally was called to clubs to put down a fight or something. No, actually, I observed it. I've been married twice. I'm married to my second wife now of 20 years. When I was a young fellow, I married another girl. And she saw how much fun I was having as a reserve police officer, that she ended up becoming a deputy sheriff and became a detective. And she worked sex trafficking cases. She was mostly burglary, but she worked one big sex trafficking case that she followed for months. And I remember she took me to one of these houses. We just drove past it, and she said, "There's girls in there being held prisoner." And this is when they were building the Alaska pipeline. And she said, these guys are they're held by a motorcycle club, and they're being sold, and they're going to go sent up to Alaska. And I said, why can't we just go in there and get them? Send in a SWAT team. She said, because they won't testify. These guys, they have all been very carefully addicted to heroin. And if we lock them up, they'll be dying for a fix in 12 hours. And they'll say anything that their pimp wants to get another fix, and they won't testify against them. So if we rescue them, we'll just be kidnapping them, and we'll have to turn them loose the next day. She said, we'd like to do it, but we can't. And so I heard about this for quite a long time. I heard all the details. And she could tell me, because I was a fellow officer. If I was just her husband, she couldn't have told me this.
That's astounding. I don't think I'd ever really fully understood that. There's I think occasionally you see in film and they make it almost a romantic notion, that if it's the girl with the whore with the heart of gold who just looking for the right person or whatever. But as you're saying, they're virtual slaves. That's just no other way around it.
I think one of the most evil movies ever made was Pretty Woman.
Amen. That movie glorified prostitution as if it was just once Prince Charming arrives, it's all good, right?
Yeah, as though she were happy and could easily find love. Not true.
Yeah, not true at all. Not true at all. So, so Murph has got a lot going on here. He's not only got problems from without, which is North Korea, but from within his own family. He's dealing with all this. And Korea's Game. This is, and I don't do this often, but I think you know, I got a little vibe of Tom Clancy going on here, but I got to say something. I was never a huge fan of his because I never thought that the characters came off the page very well. But here, this is different. You got characters that I think are fully fleshed and are coming at you, and you're believing what they're saying. It's not a technocratic book, if that makes sense. And I hope I'm not damning with faint praise by saying that, but it comes from a good place.
Actually, you're getting at what I'm proudest of. I love my characters. And I get constant praise from anyone who reads the book. I get nice little notes about, we loved your characters. And I've got a sleeper character in there that I never write about him, but he's the character, everybody picks him out and says, gee, we just love Doc.
I got to say something real quick. I've written a mystery series. We're on our 8th book, and book 2, I brought in this character to be kind of a sidekick to the lead guy. He's as popular as the lead guy. Everybody's like, his nickname is Taters. So where's Taters in this book? Is he going to be in the next book? I'm literally get that all the time. Isn't it funny how that kind of sneaks up on you with a character?
Well, one of the things that you learn as an author is, we all fall in love with our characters. Every writer does. But if you want to write good books, if you want to write good thrillers, you have to take 1 or 2 at least of your good characters and kill them. And it breaks your heart. It breaks your heart to kill them. But the thing is, if the readers are not experiencing some tension, like, oh my God, they're not going to kill Doc, are they? Oh my God, they can't do that. And
right.
then, oh my God, they killed him. If they when they're going through that, then they got to keep turning pages to see if everybody else is safe. And that's what makes the book fun.
Yeah. It's so true. I've been there. I killed off a beloved character early on, but I want to tell you something. I regret it because I miss him terribly. I went back and created a book of short stories based on the perspectives of secondary characters in all the books. The main character is talked about, but is not in this book of shorts, right? And I was so thrilled because I gave myself the opportunity to give this long dead character an origin story, and people told me that's one of their favorite stories. So it's a powerful magnetic draw to those characters who you love so much, and it's evident in your writing and what you're doing here. This is also it's a quick read in the sense that it moves along, but it's not a short book. We're looking at what are we, about 500 pages or so?
Yeah. Well,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just the last part of the question. I'm dying to know. Did you trim any out of there before you took it to press? I'm just curious.
I intended the book to run around 300 pages, but there was just so much story to tell that I didn't want to cut stuff out. I guess I could have, but I couldn't.
Well, you toyed with a different title early on. Don't have to go too deep into that. But I am curious about it because I think that it's got some legs here, just on my, what my opinion's worth. 25 cents will get you a cup of coffee. But I love the tagline. We're already in a cyber war. We just don't know it. I love that. It's very theatrical. And I'm curious, when will the book hit the stands, Korea's Game as is? And then are there any plans to do anything else with it?
Well, I'll tell you, I self-published that book as Cyber War Attack 3 years ago. And I had to do the cover myself. I couldn't afford an artist, but I was proud of the cover. Had a good book. There's a place called Kirkus, which reviews books for libraries, and Kirkus is famous for saying, "Don't buy this book."
Yeah,
they don't mince words, and I was shocked. They liked this book. They give it a good review, and of course I was thrilled. But the thing is, there's an old joke about the dying comedian, and his friends are crying, and he says, dying is easy, comedy's hard. and my version of that is writing is easy, marketing's hard.
It's the worst.
So I wrote a good book, and I didn't have any money to market it because it would take tens of thousands of dollars to put it out. And I was trying to hook up with a mainstream publisher, and I just couldn't. I just didn't have the ganas that it takes. So I got advice from a professional, and from a professional agent. He said, change your title. He said, you need to make this book a movie, and you need all the movie producers are buying books with foreign involvement titles. So I changed the title to Korea's Game. And then I found some other professional advice. They hooked me up with a mainstream screenwriter who has written and sold a lot of movies that were produced. Most recently she did Driver, and that was Jeannie Graham Scott. So I had her write the screenplay. We prepared a complete screenplay document series where you send about 50 pages with the main screenplay. But most important, the most important thing is you make what's called a sizzle reel. You produce a preview for the movie that's never been made. And so, and this cost me, I had to choose between selling the cat and selling the dog, but one of them had to go. But I anteed up the money, and I produced a sizzle reel, and I'm sending this out to both film producers, and I'm sending it to book publishers too, because all these people are too busy to read the book, and they're too busy to read the screenplay, but they'll look at a 3-minute sizzle reel, and that'll give them an idea if they want it. So now I have a website.
Yeah, I was just going to say, is this the sizzle reel? Is that on your website as the trailer? Is that what we're looking at here?
Did you get a chance to look at that?
I did. That's a very nice sizzle reel you got. I was going to say I didn't realize that's a sizzle reel, so to speak. I thought, book trailer, which I've done a few of those, but I just wasn't sure if they moved the needle. But I looked at this one and I thought, hey, it's got something going on here.
This is both a book trailer and a movie trailer. It's primarily a movie trailer, and my website is www, of course. And then it's author, and sometimes people think I mean Arthur, like the name Arthur, but no, it's author,
right.
AUTHOR, author Ed McDonald. That's all one word, authoredmcdonald.com. And there you can see all the details about the book and the main characters and so on and so forth. You can read a couple of the chapters, and you can see the sizzle reel.
Yeah. It's a handsome
one change when I went from Cyberwarfare to Korea's Game. I added a short chapter at the beginning, which I intended to be part of the movie titles, and a short chapter at the end, which I intended to be part of the credits at the end of the movie.
Right.
And I wrote those in a slightly different style because they were written more for film than for literary art. But otherwise, the two books are identical.
Well, it's a handsome website. It's really, really nice site. And you've got to go on here, folks. And there'll be a link in the show notes to authoredmcdonald.com where you can go and you click on the trailer and you can watch the sizzle reel and you can learn more about Ed and the book and the reviews. And, he's not joking when he says Kirkus. If Kirkus Reviews says something nice, and part of what they said was it's solid writing promises a worthy series. So, Ed McDonald, I'm going to put you on the spot. Let's just put the movie talk aside for a second here. Are we going to get a series out of this deal? Are we going to get a sequel, or is that contingent on making a movie?
Well, I had to put that into writing for the screenplay promotion. People don't; these guys especially streaming cable. And can I say the sacred word? Netflix. Everybody wants Netflix, and I'm no different. They don't want to buy one book; they want to buy a series. And they want to. You produce what's called the series Bible, and it gives the name and a summary of each of the books in sequence that are to come. So I'm halfway through the first sequel, which is American Armageddon. When I'm halfway through that, the next book would be Invasion America, and the book after that would be Dragons in the Sea.
Ooh.
Dragons in the Sea is about when America becomes England. That is to say, we were the greatest country in the world, but we still have the greatest navy, even though we're poor.
Right.
So we may have to borrow money from you, but don't mess with us because we still got all those missiles and cruisers.
You're right. Yeah. Well, that's actually also kind of like Russia, right? I mean, they're still super powerful, but their economy's pretty paper thin, is it not?
Well, of course, you have to pump up the economy within 20 years, or else the Navy starts eroding. In the fourth book, dragons in the sea. Of course, the dragons are the submarines, but
Right.
it's there's a lot of political intrigue and shenanigans and plotting and scheming about how they can get some foreign country to send out the bunker fuel for the jet planes and for the non-nuclear boats. And every month they need to get enough food to feed thousands of sailors for a month. And
Right.
the United States can't really afford that. So the Navy has to cut all kinds of deals that they'd rather no one ever knew about to keep the Navy floating.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. That's got me. That's the fourth one, right? That's not,
That's
I
the
mean,
fourth one.
that's a ways off, but I'm already hooked on that one. That fascinates me. So it's
I
not
already
really,
wrote, I already wrote the last page to the fourth book.
but
When I
you don't,
and
you
when I
don't
wrote
really,
it, I intended it to be the end forever. By the time I was through writing it, I realized that I was really coming up to book 5 would come next.
well, I'm just going to warn you as a guy who started out with like a one-off, and then I thought, all right, a trilogy, and here I am. Like I said, I'm struggling to get through finish book 8. It's just if you have any popularity at all, which of course I see you're going to, it's going to be hard to stop. But why stop if you're having fun and if you can dangle that in front of Netflix? My goodness, sir, Godspeed to you on that. Ed, as we wrap this thing up here, we're going to make sure everybody has the link to know how to get a hold of this book, and more about you and look at the sizzle reel. But anything I forgot to ask you about that you want to make sure you plug while we got you?
Well, I want to repeat the website address. It's www.authoredmcdonald.com. Right now, the book is for sale in most of the venues, Books A Million and Barnes and Noble and so forth. And it's for sale as Cyberwar Attack. And the only difference is there's the 2 little scenes that I wrote for the movie titles.
Right. Right. Now,
And it's going to be, and I'm looking to get one of the big publishing companies to take it. My dream is that someday I will see this book for sale on a shelf at Costco.
oh yeah.
In which case I can die happy and rich.
I tell you, yeah. I mean, if I saw my book on a table at Costco, I would splurge on the rotisserie chicken instead of just the samples. I'd go crazy.
Well, I tried to put real people into this.
Yeah.
And you've read it, apparently.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I try to put things in there that relate. Like when Murph is talking to Eddie the electrician, and he's saying, Eddie says, "You're not going to be like my other customers, are you? You get me in here to install something, and then you say, oh, and by the way, my electric refrigerator doesn't work. You're not going to do that, are you?" He said, "Well, it seems like my television got nuked at the power surge last night. Could you take a look at it?" And Eddie rolls his chair back, looks through the door, and he says, "Yeah, it looks nuked to me. That'll be $5."
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh man, Ed McDonald, I got to tell you, I am excited for you. This is looking good. Korea's Game is the book. You can find it right now as Cyberwar Attack at all the usual suspects. Visit authoredmcdonald.com for more. Check out that sizzle reel. It's a treat. And of course, the links are in the show notes. Ed McDonald, thanks so much for joining me here on Mysterious Goings On.
It's been a real pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Hey folks, we're going to take a quick break in the episode. I probably mentioned here and there that I have another podcast called PR After Hours. PR After Hours is basically an after-hours virtual lounge where public relations, marketing, and general business professionals get together and have a laid-back conversation about what they do and how we can help each other. It's great tips if you're running a business or if you're part of a PR or marketing team or you own your own business. I guarantee you'll learn a lot of stuff. It's a twice weekly show. We've been doing it for a year now. Very proud of it. And you can get it right here on Anchor FM or pretty much wherever you get quality podcasts. But if you want to learn more information about PR After Hours, please visit prafterhours.com. I hope you'll check it out. It's a little bit different vibe, obviously, than Mysterious Goings On, but also I think if you're not careful, you might learn something and have a laugh or two as well. Thanks so much. Again, that's PR After Hours on Anchor FM.
this is Gently. I'm the host of the Reading with Your Kids podcast, and you are listening to the Mysterious Goings On podcast.
Thanks so much for listening to Mysterious Goings On. Don't forget we have a complete archive of all of our interviews, monologues, updates, live readings, dead readings. All of that stuff is available at mgopod.com. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to us so you never miss an episode. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the usual suspects. Please join us there. Again, don't forget, mgopod.com also has links where to find me on social media and how to get in touch in case you want to be a guest here on the show. Well, I think it's time that I move on for this week, but until next time, keep reading.